first thing I knew, the songbook flew out of my hand. The next bullet grazed my shoulder and then blew that little girl's head off. Everybody started screaming, and they saw it was for real. These are the words of Arthur Greaves, found in the Texas Monthly article Blood of the Lambs that was published in 1983. Greaves was an usher for the First Baptist Church in Daingerfield, Texas. In case you didn't know, Daingerfield is about 2.5 hours north from here. In this quote, he is talking about the murder of Gina Lenham, a 7-year-old girl he was sharing a rear pew with in the church on that Sunday, June 22nd, 1980. On this tragic day, a man named Alvin Lee King III had walked into the church that morning and shouted, "This is war," and started opening fire. Gina Lenham was one of the first to get shot. She was holding a love note from my uncle in her hand when she lost her life. At the end of the massacre, King ended up killing 5 people and severely injuring 10. The first thing that went through my mind after reading the article was, what kind of human being can do this? What led this man to do such a heinous crime? After a little research, I came to discover that Alvin King was a former math teacher at Longview High School who was respected for his excess knowledge in the scholastic world. He had a wife, a son, and a daughter. However, the day before the shooting, King was supposed to go on trial for raping his 11-year-old daughter. Many members of the First Baptist Church had refused to testify as witnesses on his behalf for the incest trial. He had motive, but that doesn't justify the crimes he committed. Officer Jackie Hiles with the 4 weapons used by King, an AR-15, an M1 carbine, a .38 pistol, and a .22 pistol. Bayonets were attached to the rifles. They said his jacket had been weighed down when they picked it up because he had 240 rounds of ammunition to completely wipe out the First Baptist Church and the church down the street. During the time he was waiting to go on trial for rape, him and his family were isolated, tormented by the town. This drove Alvin Lee King mad and unable to use any sense of logic. Knowing that he was about to more than likely face life in prison, it is understandable how one would be driven to the brink of insanity. However, these circumstances do not justify the mass murder of these innocent people. Among the victims were Gene Gandy, Gina Lenham, James McDaniel, Thelma Richardson, and Kenneth Truitt, each between the ages of 50 and 78, with the exception of the 7-year-old Gina. My entire family was in the church that day. My uncles, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, they were all there, other than my mother. In fact, my grandfather, Larry Cowan, was one of the first men to get up and stop King. He grabbed a fallen carbine, and there was a jammed cartridge in the carbine's chamber, and he knew this as he began to have a face-off with King, guns pointed at each other, until King realized he was outgunned and ran outside the church, where he later shot himself. That is Alvin Lee King sticking his tongue out because he survived the gunshot to his brain, and he was sent to an emergency room where they performed surgery, and his trial kept being pushed back and was sent to the because the court wanted to make sure he was fully healed and mentally stable to go through the trial. That's the funeral service that they had for the 5 people. And that's my grandfather on the far left, along with King Truitt's sons, at the service. And King's trial was pushed back so far that he ended up hanging himself in a prison cell. In an interview that I had with my mother, Shelley Cole, who spoke on behalf of my grandfather because he doesn't like talking about it, said that he truly believed that was not the way that King should have died. Justice was not served for the victims and their family and friends. The problem that today's justice system is facing with the death penalty is that the length of time on death row is unnecessarily long. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, the average time spent on death row was 16 years in 2012. This is due to the creation of lengthier appeals, mandatory sentencing reviews, and continual changes in laws and technology that have necessitated re-examination of individual sentences. This lengthy sentence causes taxpayers' money to be put towards their living expenses through all that time. And also the medical bills and treatments of the older men and women who have spent a very long time on death row and have reached their 70s and 80s. Dead man walking is one thing, said Jonathan Turley, a George Washington University law professor who has worked with older prisoners. Dead man being pushed along to the execution chamber in a wheelchair is another thing. It is considered by many in the Supreme Court a cruel and unusual punishment to have a human being sit and suffer for their entire lives on death row, going mad and losing all touch with humanity, and then be put to death. Many death row members have to be confined, spending up to 23 hours per day in isolation in a 6x9 foot cell. I believe that in order for an individual to be executed, it has to be beyond a shadow of a doubt that they've committed the crime. It was plain as day that Alvin Lee King III committed murder and mass killings, and he deserved the ultimate punishment, as do all people who commit murder and mass killings. The solution to this problem is shortening the amount of appeals given and ultimately shortening the amount of time spent on death row. This will save tax dollars, lessen the mental suffering of those on death row, and allow peace and justice to be brought to the victims of the heinous crimes committed by those on death row. Everyone in this world deserves a peace of mind, from the victims to the families and friends, and even the individuals who commit the murder. Prolonging the inevitable is what humans do best. And it's about time that we, as a society, change our ways and rightfully bring justice and peace to this world. Thank you.